just want to be here to support our business community, whatever business you are in, and our small business community especially is very important. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to the young professionals. I have to run, literally, and I'm in a play at the theater, so please come see the play. We're going to have a chamber night, in case you're interested. The 13th of June will be our chamber night at the theater. Special pricing, and it'll be a business after hours, our first one. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, welcome again, everyone. My name is Adriana. I'm the president of the Young Professionals. Our vision is for us to really be impactful and relevant as economic and social leaders in the community, and welcome everybody as small businesses, entrepreneurs, or anybody who's just a young professional in their life, no matter what the age. To pass it on and give it a little bit more of an idea of our group, it's Margaret, our secretary.
Hi everyone. Our mission is to engage and empower young professionals by creating a vibrant space that we offer opportunities for them to grow their potential, network, gain visibility, and give back to the community. I'd also like to introduce our Vice President, Monty Fletcher.
How's everybody doing? Good. Okay. Sound like everybody can hear me. I don't think it got mentioned yet, but thank you to our sponsor, Mega Workplace, Mega Properties, Penn and George. George, you want to say a few words?
Hi everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate you being here. Mega Workplace is designed for events just like this. It's designed for young professionals, it's designed for our businesses to get the resources they need. It's a collaborative workspace so we can feed off each other's energy and make positive changes in create more creative ideas that will work for our businesses. Located downstairs, you'll find the UCF Incubator, SBDC, LEAD has an office down there, and then every Wednesday, 1 Million Cups meets here, and first Thursday of every month, BNI meets here. And we're hoping to add on even more activities and events, so we hope to see you all more often. Thank you. Oh, and I did want to do a shout out to a VIP in our audience tonight, Jermaine. Economic development, and we do work very closely with the cities and the counties to help inspire and in economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Mega Properties deserves a round of applause So this, Ray always tells us the best, but I'll try. This building is a crown jewel of economic development of private ownership, public investment, and a vision for the community to give back and grow and retain talent. So that's really why we're here. Kind of bridge the gap, live, work, play. Give you guys something else to do, another reason to stay in Eustis on a Tuesday night. So with that, I want to introduce tonight, we have the privilege to hear Dr. Jerrid Kalakay, who strives to be an agent of change through the use of education and entrepreneurship as vehicles for creating positive impacts, which he's going to share a lot about that tonight, I hope, unless he's going to surprise me. He has a deep passion for social entrepreneurship, change process management, innovation, leadership, education, organizational development, personal growth, social change, and his beautiful family. Got a lot of hobbies here. He has served as a keynote speaker, team builder, professional coach, business professor, change maker, researcher, leadership engineer, and workshop facilitator. Let's give it up for Dr. Jerrid Kalakay.
Thank you. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to get the chance to talk with you all, but it's not going to be a lecture. We're going to have some fun instead. So first and foremost, thank you to the Young Professionals group and organization. Can we give them another one more round of applause? And then also to Mega Workplaces once again, please give it up to Pam and George and all the folks who make this place run. I love clickers. So first and foremost, what we want to do today, in order to really have fun and play, we're going to forget whatever our name tag says we are. Okay? So we're all just folks that are living in the world and trying to make a difference. Raise your hand if you know when you're going to die. Okay, so if you don't know when you're going to die, then you might as well live the best day you can. And so tonight, as we get moving, as we get going and so forth, we're going to talk about creating positive impacts at any stage in life. And this is all the way from the young people I work with at Valencia College, all the way to folks that I've talked to that are in retirement homes. We're going to talk about how do we make a positive impact in the world. Because raise your hand if you want to make a positive impact at some level in the world. Keep your hand up if you want to be remembered in this world at some level, right? Absolutely. And so how do we do that? Well, one way we do it is we can wait until we're ready to retire and we've accumulated enough money that we give back, right? A lot of folks do that. We can do it by volunteering right now with organizations and so forth. We can do it by going into a nonprofit, right? There's a lot of ways we can give back. But what if, and you stay with me here, what if we structure our entire life around purpose and we live a purposeful life? And what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to live. Or maybe not. That's not a picture. I know. Anyone know how to do a seance? Oh, it needs to be turned off. Sorry. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. So that was my fault. I didn't have it on. My bad. All right. So Joyce Meyer says you cannot have a positive life and a negative mind. We all know someone when something happens, it's the end of the world. Whether it be a flat tire, a broken nail, or whatever. We probably have some of them in our families. Not my immediate family, but my extended family, my wife's extended family, my new in-law family, not new, 15 years in. But there's an individual in their life that all they do is complain about everything, always. And every time you talk to them, there's something wrong. We probably know someone like that. But Joyce Meyer says you can't have a positive life if you have a negative mind. So here's our agenda. We're going to start off by talking about social entrepreneurship. How many people have heard that term before? Okay, a couple. So it'll be new to a bunch of folks. We're also going to talk about social intrapreneurship, which is similar but a little bit different. Talk about some root causes, systematic change. We're going to do an activity together called Head, Heart, Impact. We're going to create an action plan together, and then we're going to create a to-don't list. How many of you have created to-do lists? I love my to-do list. I sometimes will put stuff on my to-do list that I know I have to do no matter what, like take the dogs out, just so I can cross it off. Anybody else going to do that?
I do that.
It's a great motivator. If you don't do it, you should think about doing it. I also use food as a motivator, and I've accomplished a lot, as you can tell. So that you should not do. But nonetheless. All right. So first and foremost, hunger and homelessness exists in our community and every community around the United States. Fresh drinking water is not accessible to a good number of people, not only in our community, but around the world. And we produce an absorbent amount of trash, and our landfills are filling up. These are just some of the issues that not only do we deal with here in Central Florida, but around the world. So there's tons of places we could put our energy. Social entrepreneurship and social intrapreneurship are two vehicles that we can start to see change. So what is social entrepreneurship? Well, here's a very long definition I'm not going to read to you. Basically, social entrepreneurship is using business not only to create capital wealth, but also to create societal benefit. And so it's a way by which that, every business wants to make money. Every nonprofit wants to make money. Through social entrepreneurship, you not only have the goal of creating capital, you also have the goal of creating social value. So, what does that mean? Well, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean by your normal operations, you not only create funding and money, but you also create some type of benefit to society. Probably a number of you at one point had a pair of Tom's shoes. Anybody remember Tom's shoes? Their whole deal, that was one of the first big social enterprises that kind of pop culture realized existed. And what their deal was is every pair of shoes you bought, they donated one to a child in need in another country. And that was probably the most pop culture one. But it's kind of those things. How could we create businesses that will not only make us money, but also do good in the community? The other cause, the other item of this that social entrepreneurs focus on is what they call a root cause. And a root cause is the highest level of whatever the issue is that creates the issue. And so social entrepreneurship, its main goal is to alleviate the root causes to whatever the problem is, right? I took some students to a soup kitchen in the Thanksgiving season a few years ago, maybe a couple more than a few years ago. And we were there, we were Second Harvest Food Bank, and we were doing the Thanksgiving thing, and we're giving meals to the hungry and homeless. And at the end of it, I brought my students around and we were talking, kind of a debrief on what they experienced, what they saw. And one of the students said to me something that was pretty inane, but it was also pretty profound. And they said, "Wow, this was so exciting, Dr. K. I really can't wait until I come back next year and do it again." And it was inane, and they meant it with all the heart, and it sounds really nice. But my question back to them is, what if over the course of the next 365 days, we eliminate the need to ever come back here and do it again? What if we figured out a way that everyone in our community would have food and not have to be hungry and not have to go to Second Harvest Food Bank for a meal on Thanksgiving or a meal the day after Thanksgiving? Right? What if we were to create a solution to hunger? What would that look like? What could that look like? And would it be cool? I think it'd be really cool. One of the things that was really impactful in college, one of my good friends who grew up in foster care would always get really upset. They always did the Toys for Tots toy drives. Everyone's seen those for Christmas, and it's a fantastic program. But he always got really upset whenever we go to Publix or anywhere grocery shopping. We lived together for a period of time, and he'd be really upset about it. I never understood why. And he said, "Well, you know what? What happens the day after Christmas when you're in foster care, most of the time, when you get those toys?" I said, "No, I don't know. I was fortunate enough not to have to be raised in foster care." He said, "Well, many of the parents and many of the families that I was with would take away my toy and they'd return it to the store." I said, "No, come on. There's no way they did that, Jeremy." And he said, "No, they do." He said, "A lot of them did. Not all, but a lot of them did." What if we eliminated the need for foster care? There's a big debate right now about IVF and in vitro fertilization and so forth, what that means and whatnot. But there are thousands of children in the state of Florida that are up for adoption. There are actually more houses that are vacant in the United States currently than there are homeless people in the United States. Well, if you're thinking like capitalists, like we all are, right, and a business person, it's very easy to know the answer. Well, the people that are homeless can't afford to buy a house. They can afford to buy a house, they would buy the house, right? What if we thought beyond that? And what if we came up with solutions to solve those issues of that vacant house and the homeless person around different constraints and different mechanisms than we currently have? And now, I don't have the answers to any of these questions. I'm simply asking them. What if? What if we can come up with solutions that address the root causes of many of our issues? Right? Because if let's tackle hunger in Central Florida. What are some causes for hunger? Besides not eating. what are some reasons people are hungry in our community?
Can't afford it.
What, can't afford it? Okay. Why? What's that?
No job.
No, they may not have a job. Why don't they have a job? They may not have the right qualifications. Yeah, absolutely. Might not have the right qualifications.
Substance,
What?
mental illness,
They might have mental illness. Absolutely.
substance abuse,
Substance abuse. Absolutely.
choice.
Choice. Yeah, they could choose not to work. Right. A lot of folks, we heard about that a lot when the pandemic happened, right after the pandemic, and nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. Well, so yeah, I mean that's very real. They could not want to work, right? The issue of hunger in our community isn't just simply solved by feeding people. We've got to think about ways to start to hit those root causes. You know, it costs, if you do struggle with mental health issues, it costs a lot of money for medications. It's very time consuming. You know, if you have any kind of health issues in general, they're very expensive. Anybody that's been to the doctor's recently, even if you have insurance, it's still a lot of money. And so, you know, a little bump in the road, all of a sudden now, you know, you're in a situation where you might not have enough that you thought you would. The average American is only about 40 days from being homeless. And what that means is if you got into a horrible car accident, God forbid, but you got in a horrible accident or something happened and you couldn't work, in about 40 days, the average American would run out of the ability to pay their bills to the point where they'd be risking homelessness. Now, that's counter to what we see, right? We see the folks on the street begging for change and so forth, and we think to ourselves, man, that sucks. But we never think, could that be me? I've met people now, I've got a PhD and 2 master's degrees and 2 bachelor's degrees and way more schooling than any one person should ever have, right? But I've met people who are way smarter than me, way more talented than me, and have way more degrees than I have, who are homeless. And the story they tell is they got sick, or their wife got sick, or their husband got sick, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden they're homeless, right? Now, hopefully it doesn't happen to anyone here. And I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, per se, happen anyway. But in our world, the wealthiest country in the world, I think the best country in the world, personally, we have homeless people that live on the street. Many of whom are veterans who have fought, Memorial Day was yesterday, who have fought and lost limbs or mental capacity or so forth and so on, and they sleep out on the street. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, folks. I'm simply setting the table for what we can do. So here are 3 organizations here in Central Florida that I want to brag on for a moment. These are social enterprises. The first one is Downtown Credo. Downtown Credo Coffee, anybody, it's in Orlando. They are a pay what you can coffee shop. And they started about 15 years ago by a gentleman named Ben Hoyer, who wanted to create a mechanism for people in Orlando to enjoy each other's company and embrace community. And part of his model is that you pay whatever you can. There's no pricing. There's a suggested retail price, but you can pay whatever you want. Now, with that comes a whole slew of problems and challenges. The shop that we see here is closed. They've got 2 other locations, but this one is closed. So it's difficult to be a social entrepreneur. The next one is Recycling Across America. Orange County, all of the public schools, and MCO, our big airport, all use Recycling Across America. Recycling Across America was started by Mitch Hedberg. And what she did was, she is a graphic designer by trade, and she said, you know what, it's really confusing because there isn't any standard labelization for recycling. And she was standing at an airport in Denver about 10 years ago or so, and she was going to throw away, trying to figure out where she should throw her wrapper that she had from her breakfast sandwich. So she's standing at these garbage cans, and there's recycling and the garbage and so forth. And right when she figures out which can her wrapper should go into, someone came and threw a dirty diaper into the recycling bin. And she said, oh man, that doesn't work. And she gets on her flight, and as a graphic designer, that's by what she does by trade, she says, well, you know what? Part of the issue is there's no standardization for recycling in the United States. And so what she decided to do was create standardized labeling. So if you go to any Orange County public school, you go to the airport, you'll see their labels. But it's an international organization now. And then lastly, probably our crown jewel of social enterprises here in Central Florida is Clean the World. Has anyone ever heard of Clean the World? So Clean the World was started by Sean Seipler about 10 or 15 years ago. They are an international company now. They're a huge company. They've got offices all around the world. But what they do is they recycle hotel soaps and shampoos. So when you go to a hotel, when you leave, if you open the shampoo and just smelled it, didn't use any of it, it's thrown away. When you use the bar of soap to wash your hands, if you don't take it with you, it's thrown away. Right? And so Sean Seipler worked for Best Buy, and he would be in Minneapolis oftentimes. And he is born and raised in Miami. And he found himself on selling missions as your salesman for Best Buy in Minneapolis. He got to fly to Minneapolis. And as he told me, he said, you know, I never want to leave my hotel room because I'm from Miami and Minneapolis is very, very cold. So he'd get everything set up to his room, and one night he was sitting in his room eating dinner, having a drink, and he came to the realization that this soap is thrown away. And so his original idea was to sell the soap. He wanted to kind of do a fight club, and I know you're not supposed to talk about it, but he wanted to recycle the soap and then sell it to bougie shops. And he's German and Cuban, so he called his German family and like, we're never going to buy recycled soap. That's crazy. And then he's like, oh man, and so it wasn't. And then he also heard on the radio or on TV that one of the largest contributors to infant mortality or infant death of people under age 5 is dysentery, the lack of proper sanitation. And so he said, what if instead of selling it to wealthy people, what if we just gave it away to folks around the world that don't have soap, shampoo, etc.? And then he had to figure out how to pay for it. The way they figured out how to pay for it is have the hotels buy a subscription to Clean the World, for Clean the World to recycle their soap. So a few years ago, the rate was 30 cents a hotel room per room a month, and Clean the World would recycle. Now, why would a hotel want to do that? Think like business people. What's that? Write off. Yeah, they might be able to write it off, right? Because they're donating the money to them, right? What else? Anything else? Any other reason besides write off?
Going green.
CSR, right? Corporate social responsibility. Going green, right? Yeah, that's all really nice, right? So there's tons of marketing involved in that. What else? Why else would they want to do it? Well, to be good people. They're gonna donate the soap to people in need, the children in need particularly, right? So they can feel good about that. They also don't have to throw it away, right? Now, if you own a business and you have a building, you have someone come and pick up the trash and recycle it, and that costs money. And if you're a hotel, you can imagine how much trash they generate per day. And so if you can divert some of that trash away from the landfills and away from the garbage company, that also saves money. So for all those reasons, they're a great success. And they've got locations all around the world, like I said. They've got 2 in China. They've got 2 in the United States, Orlando and Las Vegas. And then all through Europe and so forth. They're really neat. Clean the World, if you want to look them up, they're fantastic. All right. So, again, the reason why I ask you to take off your identity, so to speak, and just be a person in the world is, what could you do? I'm not saying you should start a giant company or change everything about your entire life. But how could you live more purposefully in the world today? And I don't want anyone to raise their hand, but I'll ask you, do you feel like you're living purposefully right now? Okay, I see some heads nodding. That's fine, you don't have to admit it or not admit it, right? We're all on a continuum. Some might be at like 10% purpose, and 90% hustle. I need to make that money because you know what? Things cost a lot of money, or anything in between. And what I'm going to advocate for is that your purpose can be also your hustle. You can make money purposefully. And then, one of the things, everyone knows the story of the starfish. The little girl on the beach throwing starfish back into the ocean. Does that ring a bell? All right, Cliff Notes version. Little girl's on the beach there's thousands of starfish on the beach. They've washed up. This little girl's out there throwing them back into the ocean. A gentleman comes along and goes, why in the world are you doing this? There's no way you're going to go to clean all the starfish up. You're not going to make a difference at all. And she throws one in and she said, I made a difference for that one. Right. So that's the starfish. So what you could do today, would it matter? And who would it matter to? And so, with your own hands, what could you do? Some of us are manual work, get in there, fix things, work on things, etc. Some of us are, I would rather pay for that to be done. And either way is fine. What spark would we need to actually live our purpose? What could we do now to make us feel happier, healthier, more excited about getting up every day? Right? And I asked that question to some students about 2 years ago. One student said, if I could wake up on the beach, I'd be happy. My question to them is, what about the beach would make them happy? Well, it's beautiful. Absolutely, it makes sense. But would any of their problems go away because they woke up at the beach? No. A lot of people change their address because they think the grass is greener on the other side, right? The grass is green when you water it. And a lot of people make that mistake. The student's not wrong about wanting to wake up on the beach. That would be beautiful. But what they associated with the beach is really what they wanted. What they associate with the beach is vacation, time with their family, relaxation, maybe a drink in their hand, etc. That's what they want. They're using the beach as a metaphor for that. Right? I know people who live all year long for their 1 week vacation. And they're lucky to get a week vacation. But they literally work their asses off all week long for that, all year long for that 1 week. A week is really short. What if the other 51 weeks didn't have them struggling quite as much? What if they enjoyed those other 51 weeks in which almost to the point where that 1 week, that 52nd week, is a bonus and you get to go on vacation? Systematic change happens in a number of ways. Again, if you're thinking about creating a business or you're working in a business, there's three main ways that social enterprises or social enterprises work. They are for-profit, non-profit, and then often a hybrid of the two. All that basically means is what the state or the federal government classifies you as, right? There's one of the things that's confusing for students especially is when we talk about nonprofits, they think that they don't want to make money. And I don't know if any of you have ever worked for a nonprofit, but money is a very, 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 very important thing. And all nonprofits want to make money. It's not a nonprofit because they don't want to make money. It's a nonprofit because the government says that's the name for it. Right? But nonprofits and businesses want to make money. We're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. There are less people just donating money. There's only so many. What is it, Mackenzie Phillips? Is that her name? The gentleman who started Amazon, his ex-wife. She's donated millions and millions of dollars, but there's only one of her. And if you happen to be a lucky recipient, or your organization's a lucky recipient of one of those millions of dollars, it's great. But those people, there's very few of them. And so that's the drive to create revenue streams is what's becoming the most important. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit. And we're going to do a little bit of an activity. And I know it's late in the day. I know you're probably tired from working and life. But I guarantee if you give me 10, 15 minutes on this activity, you will go away with something that will change a little bit about how you think about the world. And like most things, you only get what you put into it. So, what we're going to do is an activity called heart plus head Venn diagram equals impact. What we're going to do is I'm going to read a series of prompts to you, and you're going to fill in that first circle, the Venn diagram. If you turn it sideways, it looks like a headless snowman, as a student told me a number of years ago. But that heart section is, what you're going to fill in there is all the things that help your heart beat faster. Okay, it's all the things that you enjoy, that you have fun with, etc. And I'm going to read the prompts to you. And if you want, you can go with the prompts. I read a prompt, you write down your answer, and you can work it that way. If you want to ignore the prompts completely, you can do it that way. This is yours to play with. I ask only two things of you. Number one, be generous with yourself. What you write down is yours and yours alone. It doesn't matter what it is. You can always go back to it later and read it or ignore it. Number two, I want you to be as generative as possible. And I want you to write as much as you can. Okay, I want you to pretend you're back in grade school or back in high school, and you have 30 seconds to write a paragraph or something crazy. So I want you to be generous with yourself. You're not judging anything that you could think of. Anything that pops in your head as a result of the prompt or as a result of what could be in your heart, you're going to write down. Don't judge it. It's yours. And then number two, you're going to be as generative as possible. You're going to generate as many things as possible in that little circle. Okay, anybody have any questions? All right, let's have some fun. So what I'll do is I'll read every prompt twice. Again, if you want, you can write directly from the prompt and answer the prompt as they go through. Or you can completely ignore me completely and don't use the prompts at all. But what you're going to be writing is the issues, ideas, people, and other things that move you. These are the things that help your heart beat faster. Okay? All right, here we go. What are the issues or ideas that make your heart beat faster? Whether because you are so deeply compelled by them, because you are angered by them, or because you are overjoyed by them. What are the issues or ideas that make your heart beat faster? Whether because you are so deeply compelled by them, because you are angered by them, or because you are overjoyed by them. And don't forget to be as generous and as generative as possible. What is the primary topic of the articles you always read? And the movies, books, and TV shows to which you are most attracted? What is the primary topic of the articles you always read? And the movies, books, and TV shows to which you are most attracted? What are some similar qualities in the people you consistently find yourself drawn to? What are some similar qualities in the people you consistently find yourself drawn to? When are you sitting on the edge of your chair? When are you sitting on the edge of your chair? And again, right now you're not boss, mom, dad, son, daughter. You're just a person in the world. What social or environmental problem do you ache to see solved? What social or environmental problem do you ache to see solved? When have you seen injustice? When have you seen injustice? Have you ever stood up for anyone? Who? Why? Who would you stand up for and why? Have you ever stood up for anyone? Who? Why? Who would you stand up for and why? What stories resonate with you and why? What stories resonate with you and why? Who are your people? Who are your people? When you imagine the world you want to live in, what 3 words come to mind? When you imagine the world you want to live in, what 3 words come to mind? What feels like home to you? What feels like home to you? If you were starting an organization or a project, what values would you shape it around? If you were starting an organization or a project, what values would you shape it around? When your inbox is full, what emails do you always open first? What organizations or individuals are they from? And what is the topic of these emails? When your inbox is full, like every day, what emails do you always open first? What organizations or individuals are they from? And what is the topic of these emails? All right, and what I'd like you to do is continue to write for the next minute or so, being as generative and as generous as possible. If you were starting an organization or a project, what values would you shape it around? All right, how was that? How was that? How's everyone feeling? Okay? You have a little bit of fun? Everyone played along, so I appreciate it. All right. So, does anyone want to share anything that they wrote down in the heart section? You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you can. Yes, ma'am.
My daughter.
Your daughter? Awesome.
Wildlife conservation.
Wildlife conservation? Very cool. Very cool. Anybody else? Again, we're not judging. Yes?
History.
History? Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Chase.
The chase? Okay. All right. Okay, now what we're going to do is switch over to the head section. unfortunately it doesn't show up on the TV. But the head section. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it. We're going to fill it in with all of our skills, talents, and everything that we bring to the table. Okay. So again, very similar to the first, I'm going to read prompts, and if you want, you can wait until I give you a prompt, and you can simply answer that prompt. Or if you want, you can completely ignore the prompt and write whatever you want, as long as it's about the skills, abilities, knowledge, and connections, and everything else that you bring to the table. Okay? And again, I want you to be as generous with yourself as possible. No judgments. Pops in your head, write it down. And as generative as possible. So I want you to write down as much as you possibly can. Okay? Anybody have any questions before we get started? No? You guys are such a good group. So one of two things is happening. Either I'm doing a really good job of explaining it, and you don't have any questions, or I'm doing a really horrible job explaining it, and you're so confused you don't even know what to ask. I'm going to go with the first one, because it makes my ego feel better. All right, here we go. What do you know inside and out? Filling in the head section. What do you know inside and out? What groups or individuals do you know well or have unique access to? What groups or individuals do you know well or have unique access to? What education, traditional or non-traditional, perhaps from a neighbor or a friend, do you have? What education, traditional or non-traditional, perhaps from a neighbor or a friend, do you have? What have you learned from your jobs? The things that you'd put on a resume and the things you wouldn't. What have you learned from your jobs? The things you put on a resume and the things you wouldn't. What are your tangible skills and intangible strengths? What are your tangible skills and intangible strengths? What experiences have you had that have given you insights or information that most others do not have? And what are these insights? What experiences have you had that have given you insights or information that most others do not have? And what are these insights? What are the three things that your best friends, your family, and your mentor would all agree you're best at? What are the three things that your best friends, your family, and your mentor would all agree that you are best at? What is your role in groups, whether you're with your family, your friends, or your peers? Are you usually the pragmatist, the entertainer, the organizer? What is your role in groups? Whether you're with your friends, your family, or your peers, are you usually the pragmatist, the entertainer, the organizer? Imagine that when you leave this session, you receive 3 emails. One personal, one professional, one semi-professional, all asking something of you. What are these people asking of you? What do they see you as an expert in? And what do you wish they were asking you? Imagine that when you leave this session, you receive 3 emails. One personal, one professional, one semi-professional, all asking something of you. What are these people asking of you? What do they see you as an expert in? And what do you wish they're asking of you? Give you another minute just to continue to free write. All right. How was that one? Easier or harder than the first? Harder. So some say harder, some say easier. Okay. So it depends. It depends on where we are and what stage we are in our lives. When I do this activity in colleges, typically the freshmen and sophomores find the first step much easier than the second step. But interestingly, the juniors and seniors oftentimes find the second step easier than the first. Why do you think that is?
Pick the major and
Juniors and seniors typically have their major in mind. They're doing internships. They're interviewing for jobs. They're maybe thinking about graduate school. And what do all those things require? Resumes, cover letters, etc., etc. So they're more practiced in writing the concrete head stuff than they are with the heart. But what happens in the world if you really, really love something in your job, but you're terrible at it? So if you're all heart, you love your job, you're excited every day to wake up and go and do it, but you're terrible at it. How long do you get to do that job for? Not long, not long. What if you're completely in the head section and you know everything there is to know about the job, but you hate it? How long do you get to stay in that job? Until the first heart attack. Right? Until the first heart attack. Or until something horrible happens, right? Neither are good. But we have people in our society who are doing one or the other. They really, really love what they're terrible at, or they're really, really good what they hate. Neither one is ideal, right? The marriage of the two is where we find real purpose and real ability to make impact, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to look back at our heart section, and then we're going to look at our head section, and we're going to pick out one or two from each and see if we can put them together to make an impact. Okay? Now what do I mean by this? Well, you might have written down in your heart that you love animals. You might have written down in your head section that you love science. What in the world could be created as an impact if you love animals and you're really good at science? What's that? Animal science, yeah. Zoology. You can work with animals. You can be an animal trainer. You can train dogs. You can You can have a bunch of stuff. You can have a farm, right, or whatever the case may be. That's just one thing, right? So what we're going to do is, again, it's really critical that you're as generous with yourself as possible. You're not judging anything. Anything you write down is not, you're not marrying it. You're not spending the rest of your life. It's not death to you apart. It's simply something you wrote down on a piece of paper. Okay? So you're going to write down as whatever comes to mind, you're going to write it down. It doesn't matter. No commitments, no judgments. And then you're going to write down as much as you possibly can. But what you're going to be doing is taking things from the heart section and seeing if they can combine into the head section. Okay? And this is not job titles, although they can be. They're not careers, although they can be. It could be hobbies. It could be anything you want. Your impact in the world is going to be greater when what you love and what you're good at are combined. Because I know a lot of people who are really good at something, and they don't like it, so they don't do it for very long. And I know a whole lot of people who are really, really love something, and they're terrible at it, like me and pickleball. I love pickleball, but my 13-year-old kicks my butt every time we play pickleball. So I need some lessons. If anybody out there is a good pickleball player, let me tutelage me. I'll learn. But all right. So what we're going to do again, we're going to write as much as we can. The prompts now are going to be a little bit different. But again, you can listen to them, respond in kind, or you can completely ignore them. The whole idea is you're going to play with some ideas. There's no commitments. There's no judgments. You're simply going to combine things from your heart and head into possible impacts. Okay? Now that we've identified some important components of our hearts and heads, we're going to move into the impact section. When we talk about impact, we are referring to times in your life when you're in the zone, losing track of time because you are doing the work that you would do for free, even if you're getting paid for it or not. So pick out one idea from each and see how you can put them together to combine them into a possible impact. Again, it's time to be creative and play with ideas. Please write as many as you can, even if they surprise you when they come up. Some of them are going to be things you would never really do in real life. Some of them could be things that you would not decide to do for the rest of your life right now, but maybe later on you might change your mind. And some things you'll already do. So be creative, be messy, and write in the back if you need to. Just get it all done and all out. Your impacts can be topics, like the history of social change movements, or your impacts can be a question for you to investigate later. So your impact can be topics, like the history of social change movements, or it could be a question for you to investigate and consider later. They can be job titles or career paths. They can be job titles or career paths. They can be roles. Think about boards, nonprofit and otherwise. Volunteer opportunities, paid or unpaid work. Young professional organizations. They can be artistic projects. They can be organizations or schools, existing or non-existing. They can be a complete thought or just a fragment or shards of an idea. Some of the things you write down may be natural extensions of the work that you already do. They may be activities or ideas that you can incorporate into your work or your life right now. Other things you write down may require radical change. You can write in fragments, single words, or full paragraphs. It's totally up to you. Once you feel like you've written enough for now, you can go ahead and put down your writing utensil and kind of look up so I have an idea of where we are with this group. All right, so hopefully that was fun. Hopefully you enjoyed that. What I'd like you to do now is look at the impact section and pick out one or two of the impacts that you're most intrigued about. And what I mean by most intrigued, these are the ones that you want to think about later. You want to investigate. Maybe they're the ones that surprise you the most. They're not things, again, that you're committing to right now to do for the next 60 years of your life. They're simply the most intriguing ones that you wrote down. So pick one or two, and then turn to a neighbor and share those one or two. Oh, yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I'd like you to have a conversation about it, not just exchange papers.
Maybe background info.
What would you
Mentorship. Body of light. Personal development. My development.
Yeah, so in my head, I work ethics and I work in community development. You're supposed to, you know who Rick Ross is, right?
Yeah.
This is Ross. Anyway. I really think so. What you do? You have the marketing.
All right, I hate to cut the conversation short. I do invite you to continue the conversations, both here and when you leave. Hopefully the folks who are sitting around, you know somewhat. I know most folks probably know each other at least a little bit. But I'd like you to continue the conversation not only aloud, but also with yourself. This activity is all about how you can use your talents and your heart to create positive impacts. Because what the world needs most is people who have come alive and are living their purpose, living their impact. You know, we've got tons of problems. I highlighted some earlier, got a little doom and gloom. There are lots of people who are working on those problems. But like all big issues and big problems, they were contributed to by lots and lots of people over a long period of time. And so any good that's going to come by way of our labor is going to take a little while, and it's going to take a lot of us. So, we just did that. So imagine we're a year from now, and you're living your impact, whatever that might be. You're volunteering, you've changed your career completely, you've started a business, you've gone into politics, and you're mayor of Eustis, whatever it is. A year from now, we come back here, and you get to report out that you've done whatever it is your impact is. Think about that for a moment. Whatever it is. Just one of the items on that sheet. If you are going to achieve that and be able to tell us about your impact and your impact making, then it's time for a change. Right? Some of you have already started the race and you're almost to the finish line to that impact. Some of you didn't even know you were in a race. And now all of a sudden you're there and you're like, oh, I guess I'll start. And then some of you are still working on finding where the race is supposed to take place. It's all good. But it's time for a change. So, if you are able to come back a year from now and you're living your impact, making a difference in the world, and making a difference, more importantly, in your world, where would you need to be in 1 year? Where would you need to be in 6 months? In 3 months? In 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day? Everyone in here, has anyone ever done anything fantastic that took a lot of work? Raise your hand if you have. Yes, everyone in here should have their hand raised. Getting up this morning, going to work, and then coming here is a fantastic thing you did. Okay, so everyone in here has done something fantastic. Okay? But if you've ever worked on a long project, whether it be graduating from high school, or making a sports team, or trying out like Marie is in the play, I think that's amazing, right? Anything great comes with great amount of work. And in order to achieve it, you don't achieve it overnight. One of my favorite books that came out a number of years ago is the Couch to 5K book. And it was my favorite book because I only read the cover. And I was, this is going to be great. My wife wants me to get into shape. I'm going to do this. It's going to be fantastic. Couch to 5K. And I didn't actually open the book or read it. So she signed us up for a 5K. And I almost died. Right? Because I literally thought I could go from the couch to the 5K. Now that's pretty dumb for someone who has a doctorate degree. But we've all been there. We've all done similar dumb things. Anything we do worth doing is going to take effort and energy. And so if you're going to come back here in a year, you're living your purpose, what do you need to do today and tomorrow to move you along that path? What do you need to have done in a week to move you along that path? A month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. And then lastly, sorry, I got too excited. To-don't list. What I would encourage you to leave with is the thought of creating a to-don't list. And what I mean by that is we know ourselves pretty well. And we know what we do really well. We also know what we don't do so well. And we know all of the things that are hang-ups. Things that prevent us from doing what we really want to do. Right? And if you don't know those, you could maybe rely on your partner to tell you, because they will be free and excited to tell you where your shortcomings are. So if you don't know where they are, ask a partner or a previous partner, and they will be more than happy to tell you. But when we create this to-don't list, what I want you to do is be critically and abundantly honest with yourself about what you shouldn't do. Right? So my office, I have two offices. I have one at the college and I have one at home. The one that I have at home, it happens to be in my bedroom. And so when I'm tired and I work, I mean, I have a pretty big room. It's off to the side. But I could also, from my desk chair, I could see my bed. And so if I'm tired, I know I should not work in that office. Because one of my hang-ups is I like naps more than work. Right? So if I put myself in that situation, I know I'm going to make the bad choice. So I just don't. I go to a coffee shop, I go to my other office, and I get my work done. Right? But it's only when I'm tired. Right? But everyone has those hang-ups. So you want to write down your to-do list. All right? And then I'll leave you on this. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." So here's my contact information, my Valencia email. One of the things that I do, in addition to a professor and all the other things, is I also own a coffee company, Dos Alas Latin Coffee. So we're a mobile coffee company. I have my cards. I'll have my cards up here if you have any questions. But I thank you all for playing with me a little while and hearing me speak. I had a lot of fun.
Q&A.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Does anyone have any questions for Jerrid or wants to go first? I guess I have a request. Can you share how you turned your business or your life into a social enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my business, Dos Alas Latin Coffee, we are a social enterprise. We do that in a number of ways. One, we use sustainable products. So all of our cups, lids, straws, napkins, all that stuff is all compostable. It's very important to us, so we actually pay a premium for the cups and so forth that we use. It'd be a lot cheaper to use styrofoam, but we believe in being good stewards of the earth. So that's number one. We also pay $2 more than minimum wage in the state of Florida. So we start all of our employees at $12, plus tips. I know tipping culture is crazy and whatnot. So we believe in not having our customers pay for our employees to be able to work, but rather we pay them a livable wage, at least as much as we can, so that way they don't depend solely on the tips. So those are two of the things we do. We also use sustainable, not only sustainable cups, but we use fair trade and direct farm coffee beans, so that we know that all of the folks that are involved in the chain, the sourcing, have all been taken care of. So the farmers are taken care of, etc. Which also, costs a premium, but those are the things we've been committed to doing.
Do you have some other things that are in your impact circle that you're working toward?
Well, I think my biggest impact is the fact that I teach. I'm lucky enough to be able to do that, full time, and I'm able to enact the most change through that. I have access to well over 200 students a semester, so I can influence quite a bit, and I do that through being 100% authentic and honest about who I am and what I value. And I share all of the things that I shared with you all, and obviously a lot more with them. When I was early on in my career, I thought there were topics and things I shouldn't share. And I found that to be limiting quite a bit. And I think, at least when I was a student, and I've been a student a long time, I value professors and teachers in general who shared of themselves and didn't put up that wall. And so, I share, if we talk business, everything's a business. And so in business, you have conversations about everything. And so we talk about, issues that are applicable to business and world events. What does it mean that there's a war going on in Gaza? And what is that? That's a very volatile topic. What does it mean from a business perspective? Why are college students protesting on college campuses? Talk about divestment in Israel. What does that mean? What could that be? Those types of topics and how they relate to business and what it means for business are all things that I communicate and work towards. And I think the biggest thing is that whatever you say, you should do. And whatever you believe, you should say, and then you should do. And so, if I say I value social entrepreneurship, then I should, if I have an enterprise, it has to be a social enterprise. Otherwise, it's that same thing when I found my dad's pack of cigarettes when I was 11 or 12, and he caught me smoking a cigarette. And I thought I was so cool. At 10, I was like, man, I'm so cool. My friend was there, and we're smoking a pack of cigarettes. We're smoking one cigarette. We found it on the floorboard of his car. It was probably like a year or two old. It was disgusting and nasty, but I thought I was cool. And my dad caught me and was like, don't do that. And he smoked 2 packs a day, and I was like, wait a minute. Even as a 10-year-old, I was like, that doesn't sound right. So, I don't like that.
If you had to go back to yourself in your 20s, what one or two pieces of advice would you give yourself going forward as a professional?
So that's a great question. First and foremost, I would say start earlier. If you have an idea, or you want to do something, don't wait for approval. Don't wait for the graces to say, okay, you're going to do it, you can do it. There is no one that's coming to tell you that. So start early. If you have an idea, give it a go. Nothing is permanent. I waited a long time to do a lot of things that I wanted to in my life that I shouldn't have waited for. Should have just done. And then number two, people really don't care about you. Everyone's not talking about you. Everyone's world does not revolve around you. So stop worrying about everyone else's opinion of you, because it doesn't matter. Those would be the two biggest pieces of advice. I spent much of my 20s trying to impress people.
That don't matter.
It doesn't matter. Exactly, it doesn't matter. I don't even remember half their names, let alone their faces. So those are the two things. Start now. If you have an idea, go for it. And don't worry about other people. They're just trying to live their life the best they can. You're trying to do the best you can. Stay in your lane to get your stuff done.
Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy of leadership and how you emerge from being a young person? What should you look for? What sort of mentorship? And then once you finally get there, what does authentic leadership look like to you?
So authentic leadership to me is honesty, first and foremost. It's celebrating the wins, but also reflecting on the losses and being honest about those. A lot of times when you hear, I love TED Talks, and they're fantastic, but almost always when you hear someone talk on that kind of stage, they talk about how brilliant they are and how they've done all these amazing things. And they don't tell you exactly how they learn those things to begin with, which is oftentimes through failure, right? An entrepreneur is only an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, after they've had a successful enterprise. Before that, they're just a failed entrepreneur, right? But we have lots of serial entrepreneurs. Well, how'd they get serial? Well, they failed, and then they finally got one that made it big. And now they're a serial entrepreneur. So when you look for mentors, I would suggest that you look for mentors in all aspects of your life. And build your C-suite, build your CEO, your CFO, etc., for your own life. Because everyone that you encounter could teach you something. And you don't have to always have a mentor that's older than you. They could oftentimes be younger than you. And I would be hesitant to count anyone out simply because of the way they look, or the way they talk, or their job currently. Because I've learned some amazing things from people. That if I was more closed-minded, I would have never learned from. And I would have shut them out. And that would have been a horrible thing to do because they had a lot of talent to give me and a lot of talent to share. And then, also, don't be afraid to mentor other people. Because again, you've done some amazing things in your life, and other people can learn from those. I was helping my son study for an exam he has tonight at Civil Air Patrol. And I have a PhD in leadership and change. And the topic in the chapter that he was struggling with most was the chapter on leadership. And he comes to me and he's like, "Can you help me study?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, we'll study." And it happened to be the chapter on leadership that he was struggling with the most. But if he hadn't asked me for help, I wouldn't even have known that was a chapter in his text, right? And then as we're going through the chapter, it's listing all these military people who have done these amazing things and why. And he's telling me about their backstory beyond just what's in the book. And I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. So we were really, my son's 15, and he's teaching me this, mid-40s person, so you can gain stuff from everywhere.
Can you hear me, Jerrid?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do you remember me?
I do, yeah. You're,
I remember you too. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, with this graph in mind, what brought you to the marketplace that day? And then since then, like, how was you not being in the marketplace? How did that affect how you moved forward after that? You understand what I'm
Yeah,
asking?
when I came and got the coffee?
No. Didn't I see? I believe I met you there in August. They were doing the open.
Oh,
house.
yes, yeah,
Right.
absolutely, yep.
So what
Yep.
brought you there that day? And then
Yeah.
since then, how your decision to not be there? How did that impact your business?
Yeah, so what the gentleman from DNA Coffee, right there in Eustis Market, is talking about is they back in August they had before the marketplace opened, they had an open house, and Dos Alas Latin Coffee I went to the open house to check it out, and for us it wasn't a good fit. The reason being is we are still looking for a brick and mortar space, but it wasn't a good fit for us. The location didn't really work, and we didn't think we'd be. One of the biggest things was that they originally said they weren't be open in the morning, and for us, 90% of our business is between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. And so we didn't think it would be a good fit for us, and that's why we didn't go there. Since then, I mean, I every time I see it, I think it's a fantastic space. I think it's awesome, but it just wasn't. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for us at that time anyway. How do you feel about it? All right, we can talk later. Yes, sir.
What is your secret to staying positive?
Secret to staying positive is that every day above ground is a good one, and I'm not always positive, but I allow myself the time and space to not be positive. And I honor that. And I've worked hard with mental health professionals to learn how to do that. To acknowledge the fact that not every day is a good day, and some days you just want to say the F word, and that's okay. But the next day, if you wake up again, you've got an opportunity to start all over. And so I try to be as positive as possible. And then the things that I really hate doing or really don't like to do, I just I think to myself, the time's going to pass. And it's going to pass whether I do this thing and it's going to benefit me or I don't do it. Either way, I'm going to end up 5 o'clock or whatever the time is. And so that's how I kind of soldier through.
Hey, buddy. Thank you for your time tonight. I want to share something with you that my coach shared with me about 7 years ago. He said the largest gap in people's life is between knowing and doing. Just a big, big gap. We all kind of know what we're supposed to be doing, know what we need to change. Sometimes we need to bring it into focus. When I'm looking at your diagram between the head and the heart, and I see the impact in the middle, from your experience, just share with me as briefly or as much as you want, what do you think keeps most people from living into the impact? Because even tonight, people will leave with a new awareness of knowing, but they'll jump back on that hamster wheel and get back into the familiar zone and not live into that impact. What do you think keeps people from the impact?
That's a great question. I mean, the change is difficult. We all go through change. Very few people like change, and most large-scale change doesn't actually work. And the reason it doesn't work, like something like 89% of all large-scale change in organizations fail. Projects fail. That's why we have lots of people who are consultants, and they're hired and they stay very busy because they wouldn't if it did work. I think the biggest thing is fear. And I was speaking to someone earlier about this. I had a former business partner who was afraid of failure, like many of us. But what was interesting about him is he was also afraid of success. So he was afraid equally of succeeding as he was failing. Now, it sounds crazy to most of the room, but if you really think about it, it's not that crazy. There's a lot of people that are afraid of success. Because what does that mean? Am I worthy? Should I have this? Should I be able to charge these prices? Is my product good enough? Am I good enough? Should I have more than my parents have? Should I have more than my siblings have? Do I deserve this, right? And then all the other things. What would need to change? Would I need to move to be successful? That's scary. Would I need to actually do something that I don't normally do? Et cetera, et cetera. I think the fear of change is often what prevents it from actually happening or even getting started.
Thank you.
And then I think the other thing is that people tend to think about they think Rome was built in a day, right? Everyone hears that Rome wasn't built in a day. But what does that really mean? It means you have to make small steps. You know, so if you want to achieve something, what do you need to do right now to achieve what you want to accomplish, 6 months, 9 months, 10 years down the road? Because time will pass. And whether you do it or you don't, time is going to move. Time's going to move on. So a lot of students, a lot of people, they put off, starting a business, or they put off going back to school, or they put off getting an MBA, or whatever it is, because the time's not right, or they're not quite ready. And then they just find out that they never do it.
Yeah, so just to follow through with that, with one additional point I'd like your thoughts on. So we're in a room with young professionals and seasoned professionals who may be starting a young venture, a brand new venture, right? So how do you address either category, a young person, a seasoned professional starting something new, the control systems we all live in? Okay, I'll just throw a couple out, so education, politicians, religion, entertainment, okay? All of these things have an agenda to move you towards their end result away from your impact, where you need to live and thrive, where you're gonna make a difference once you come out of a controlled system and get into the creative zone. Because when I look at your chart, that's what the impact is. You're stepping into the wilderness of creativity. You're leaving the zoo and going into the jungle, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just find it interesting that we can identify what it is we want to do and what we want to share, and then we get stuck. We don't do it.
No, absolutely. I'm reminded of a quote that I love, and it's if you don't get busy building your dream, someone will hire you to build theirs. If you don't get busy building your dream, someone will hire you to build theirs. So it's a choice we make. And just by very nature of coming here tonight, you're making a choice to do the things you want to do, right? There's a lot of places you could have been. Although I love the group and I love the folks that put this on, but there's a million places you could be that are probably more fun, right, or more exciting. No offense, but there are. Let's be honest. But you're here. You're here with other young professionals, and you're building your network. You're learning new things. You're already moving in that direction, so just keep moving.
I'm going to add on to that yet again, we live in Lake County and it's a Tuesday. So what other fun things would everybody else be doing? But I wanted to ask, so you mentioned that on a yearly basis you have about 200 students that come through your classrooms. And so do you find any consistent traits amongst the students that end up becoming leaders in whatever fields they choose, or entrepreneurs?
I think that there's not really any. There's certainly traits that will give them advantage over other things, like being punctual, asking questions when they have a question, volunteering for things. These are traits that we have often heard lead to leadership positions and successes. I think the biggest one that I've observed is people that are able to rebound from failing oftentimes are most successful. And what I mean by that is some of my best students are students that were not good students in high school, or they have a GED, or they tried college and they failed out, and they're back. And they're back with a determination and an understanding of how difficult it could be, and they've worked out all the bugs in their own system to make it happen. So people that are good at failing, or they're able to rebound from that failing, are oftentimes most successful.
Have you had any case where you're like, wow, this guy made it and he was a mess? Or he
Yes, I do have. I had one student about 7 years ago who was in an honors class of mine that I was teaching, and he sat in the very front row. He was late almost every day, and then the entire time he was there, he never participated in anything. When I would ask him to write notes, he didn't write notes. When I asked him to communicate and share, wouldn't communicate or share. And I thought the entire semester he hated me, and I thought he hated the class. He is now working in higher education himself, in a very similar role to what I was doing at the time I was teaching him. And come to find out, he had after he got his first position after graduate school, he emailed me and thanked me for teaching him in that class and how much he valued that class. And I was like, you're so full of shit. There is no way you valued it. But I read on, and he actually remembered a lot of things we talked about, a lot of things we did. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he is fantastic at poker. Because I would have never known any of that was going on. Yeah, but yeah, yes, his name is Michael. I won't give you his last name for obvious reasons, but yeah, I just thought he was, the whole semester I was like, this kid, I don't know what he's doing here, why he's here, I don't even know why he shows up. He hates everything, no good, and then he basically goes into the same profession, and I'm like, wow, that's so weird. And then he emails me and thanks me, and he had receipts of all the things we had done, and I'm like, man, he was telling the truth. That's so crazy. I'm never playing poker with him.
Okay, in the spirit of cooperation, so not all of us are going to leave here and get on SunBiz and start a business. So it takes a village. I think that applies to life. So how can you expound on social entrepreneurship for those that want to make a difference or have self-growth without maybe leaving their comfort zone to take more risk outside of their team?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first and foremost, we talk about social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is using the same mechanism within organizations. Most people work for corporations or large companies. That's fine. But there's a lot of people who could do amazing things within those. I'll give you an example. I had a student about 4 years ago. His father, he's from Canada, and his father in the Toronto area owns lots of apartment complexes. And he took my social entrepreneurship class. And about halfway through the class, he was like, so let me ask you this. If I can convince my dad's company, my dad and his uncle and some other people, if I can convince them to put solar panels on all of our buildings, all of our apartment buildings, and then we raise the rent just a little bit, but the residents don't have to pay for electricity at that point, would that be a good social enterprise move? I was like, yeah, that actually would be a really good enterprise move. And so he went winter break and went home, and he comes back and I was like, hey, how'd it go? But Dad hates the idea. He thinks it's crazy. There's no way we're not gonna. He's like, it'd be like, I don't know how much, $100,000 per building or per whatever. It's like there's no way he's gonna do it. I said, all right, whatever. On graduation day, he comes running up to me and shows me his picture on his phone of the third complex that's putting on solar panels. Because he kept on it with his dad and convinced his dad it would be a good deal. So his dad agreed to do one apartment complex. They raised the rent a little bit on each unit. But in turn, they basically eliminated almost all of the utilities for those buildings. And that was, you can imagine, a huge change for his dad and his dad's company, and a huge change for the folks in Toronto, right? But now now that apartment complex, that chain, he owned, I don't know how many, 15, 20 apartment complexes in the greater Toronto area. They're all almost completely sustainable, running off of renewable energy. Makes a huge difference. And the people that are living there, although their rent went up a little bit, it did not go up to the point where it's more than what they were paying in utilities. So they actually got a cut overall in their costs. So everybody kind of wins. He also ended up getting all kinds of tax incentives from the Canadian government and so forth. So everybody was very, very happy.
Your to-don't list, how do you use that? Do you ever cross things off of it? Is it just a reminder not to do things you shouldn't do?
Yeah, well, I do. Whenever I start a new project, I create a list of all the things that I'll do to sabotage it. Right? And all the things that I can do to get in the way of its success. And, I'll be honest, most of the time it's not more than 10 things, which is pretty good. But I write them down. And whenever I start a new project, I write down all the things and all the ways that I think or I anticipate myself running out of steam on this project or running into my own self, right? One of the biggest lessons that I had to learn was oftentimes I tell myself no before I even ask the question. So early on in my career, I would not apply for jobs even though I felt like I might be qualified because I thought they were going to tell me no. So I just wouldn't apply for it. And then I'd see who they actually hired, and I'm like, man, I'm better than that person, right? So I stopped saying no to myself about mid-20s, and now I just ask. You know, I ask or I go for it. You know, and a lot of times it is no, but sometimes it's yes. So I don't create a to-don't list every day, but whenever I start a new project or a new task or a new something that's meaningful to me, I create the list.
All right, Dr. Jerrid. I've always wondered with higher education, when you got your first bachelor's degree, did you decide to get your second, or did you just go on to your master's and then decide, you know what, I can double major in something else? For someone like myself that really don't have much of an education, just a hard work ethic, like, did you, hey, you know what, I can't really decide what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be perfectly honest, in keeping with what I said earlier, the only one that was purposeful and I actually intended to do was my doctorate. All the rest were done by way of trying to meet a goal. So when I graduated from high school, I graduated with 1.92 GPA. So in case you're wondering, it was not legal in the state of Florida to graduate and get a high school diploma at the time with a 1.92 GPA. But they grandfathered me in. So I graduated with that, and I went to Valencia College. I'm an alum of Valencia. And when I went to Valencia, I decided, you know what, I didn't like being only the class clown. I wanted to be the class clown that also got good grades. And so I made a change. And it was not an easy change, but I made a change. And I learned how to be a student for the first time in my 13 years of schooling. When I graduated from Valencia, I knew I wanted to go, at that time I wanted to go to music business. So I wanted to get a bachelor's of business or management. I didn't care where. I ended up at the University of North Florida. While I was there, there was infighting within the departments and so forth. And anyway, they said basically if you want to double major, you've actually got to do some classes twice. They wouldn't just honor them because the chair of the marketing department hated the interim dean of the College of Business. And so I took 3 classes twice so I could double major in marketing and management because I'm fascinated by marketing and getting people to do things that you want them to do. It was just awesome. When I graduated, I was putting on concerts and events, and I ran out of money about a year and a half in. And I remembered people that were at my university got paid to do it from the university, and they got paid to do it with student fees. So they were putting on concerts and working in the music business without actually paying out of pocket. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So I called one of those people up and I said, hey, how do I do what you do? And they said, you need a master's of higher education. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I Googled Master's of Higher Education. Florida State was one of the schools that came up. I was like, oh, Florida State's closer to Orlando than Gainesville. I'll go there. Not good at geography. No. Not good at geography at all. I was in Jacksonville at the time. So I was like, oh, it's only 2.5 hours. Didn't realize I'm still not good at geography. And I'm also terrible at directions. Thank God for GPS. Anyway, end up at Florida State. I meet with them. I enroll. Turns out that Florida State has one of the highest regarded higher ed programs in the country. I didn't know that. I just went there. And that's how I got into higher ed. And then I got a job at Rollins College, working with the radio station and putting on concerts. And then while I was there, I decided, you know what, maybe I should get a doctorate so I could actually teach. I was teaching classes, but as an adjunct only. And so I felt like, okay, I really want to be a full-time faculty member. And so that's why I went back and got a doctorate. I also wanted to get the master's degree because from when I was a young child, my parents always said I had to get a bachelor's degree. I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. That was like the only way to success. So I knew I was always going to get a bachelor's degree. And then after I did so horribly in high school, I felt like I needed to go that extra and get a master's just to like prove to everybody, mainly myself, that I was worthy, I was good enough. That's really the real motivator for the master's. What I've come away realizing is that school is just another way to demonstrate that you can see through a project, that you can see through a mission. It is not the only way, but it is one of the ways. And so it's been valuable for me, but it's not the only way to be successful, obviously. But it is, you know, you have to say, I'm going to do this, and then you have to do it. And it takes the proverbial blood, sweat, and tears to get it done. But things are hard. I mean, if you don't go to school, it's just as hard as if you went to school in a lot of ways. So, yeah, that's been my experience. The only one that was really intentional was my PhD. That one I sat down and did research. I figured out where actual schools were, you know, all those things. But that didn't come until my 30s, so I was much more mature then.
What about a round of applause for Dr. Jerrid?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for joining us today and coming in. We do have our next event June 25th, so just keep an eye on our socials for a little bit more information about that. Follow us, we can keep you updated about what's coming, not only events, but other things that we're getting involved in. Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsor, and a round of applause for our speaker tonight. And have a good night.
I'm out of jokes, so we'll see you next time.